do some more reading out of the book Taken Inside the Alien Human Abduction Agenda by Dr. Karla Turner Ph.D. And we already read the foreword from Linden and Moulton Howell, I believe it was. And Nick Pope. We're now, chapter 3, I guess. Polly. Polly first contacted me in the late 1992. Before she even finished reading Into the Fringe. I'm on page 176, her letter said, and I had to stop to write you. A passage discussing alien interest in human sexuality had struck a chord that resonated with some of her possible experiences. In the small town where she lived, Polly said she couldn't find a good support system because of the only UFO study group in the area had no women. She asked if I could put her in touch with other female abductees for mutual beneficial correspondence. What she needed to discuss was to intimate for was too intimate. What am I saying? It's more intimate for sharing with anyone other than another woman with similar experiences. Quote, I have been involved with the UFO phenomenon apparently all my life, and my children also are have been involved, she wrote. And I quote, quote, my father also has had experiences, but he is very careful. He talks about let me try this. But he is very careful whom he talks about them, as he is respected as a technical person and is active still in a military organization. End of quote. Polly explained that she had, I'm not going to say this quote anymore, a woman abductee buddy because of the sexual nature of some of the events she endured. I have all my life been seriously traumatized with the symptoms of a victim of long-term incest, she wrote, noting that her obsession with fantasies of strange sexual abuse involving unfamiliar intrusive instruments and began when she was 4 years old. That's bizarre. Its consequences had deeply affected her adult life. You stopped me short with your discussion of alien instigated sexual abuse. She continued, I have since my teen years found myself every few years in a totally irrational, sexually obsessive relationship, characterized by some intelligence talking to me in my mind, directing my actions, and apparently setting up bizarre coincidences to stage interactions. For the most part, Polly noted, her personal relationships had not been obsessive, but having learned from experience that she could be extremely manipulated in her sexual activities, she no longer sought out such involvements. I now simply stay out of all relationships of a sexual nature, she told me. The sexual and psychic energy in the last relationship was intense to the point of being ridiculous, totally directed, and involved frequent telepathy and transference of feelings. I am in counseling for childhood incest, but there is only so far I can go with it because I don't have a human incest background. Polly's letter listed several UFO sightings and alien encounter instances in her family's experiences, and most of the details were familiar from my research with other abductees. The list included interactions with elves, a creature that seems to slosh through physical objects as if they were water. The usual zigzagging lights that appeared outside my window every night at about the same time and watched me for several hours. Maddening poltergeist activity and many, many vivid abduction dreams. Pretty wild. I make no claim for them, Polly wrote, but I know how they felt. A sense since young childhood that something was in my head to keep track of me. A squealing sound of sort of in my head which seems associated with contact and bedroom visitors with my dog, my son, and I all saw. So, anyways, visitors which my dog, my son, and I all saw. Polly had merely listed these events, but as a researcher, I was interested in the details. I was also interested in the person who was trying to cope with this phenomena. Replying to her letter, I asked for more information about her experiences and offered to be a good listener, but as an abductee and a woman, I didn't say that right. Both as an abductee and a woman. Although I had no recollection of any sexual oriented encounters myself, I had learned much from others who had been through such events. And my husband Casey, whose full account is related in Into the Fringe, had himself experienced a sexual scenario with what appeared to be a hybrid alien female when he was a very young teen. Such events, I knew, were real in terms of their sensations and after effects, and any understanding of these scenarios would shed important light on the overall abduction agenda. I explained these two concerns when I answered Polly's letter, and she agreed to share her information with me as part of my ongoing research. Through letters, phone calls, and taped discussions, I learned much about Polly and the things she and her children had experienced. A tall, fair, striking woman in her mid-40s. Polly's ethnic background is European, primarily Celtic, and Scandinavian. She is an excellent artist, but much of the time in supporting her family, she has worked at rather physical jobs. Polly was born in 1946 in New Jersey and grew up in the Southeast. Widowed, she now lives with her children in the Adirondacks. In addition to the various UFO sightings they had witnessed in this area, it soon became clear that her youngest son, Sam, was also having current alien encounters. In his taped communications and the drawings and reports to Polly, which were shared with me, Sam showed unusual maturity and insight for an 11-year-old. Everything they told me came strictly from their conscious recollections, which, concerning any given event, were very incomplete. Polly relegated some of her experiences to the vivid dream category. A common response of many abductees. The statement, "I made no claim for them," meant that she could not objectively verify these events as part of our usual reality. Some of them are similar to the virtual reality scenario, VRS, dream discussed earlier, and some seem to have been simply the surfacing memories of actual events. Nonetheless, to Polly, they were experienced events, and if they occurred strictly within a mental or psychic framework, they still gave her every semblance of reality. The nature of that reality was often ambiguous. However, but there were some experiences she had verified as real, because they have been witnessed, or perceived while she knew herself to be in a conscious state of mind. These began very early in Polly's childhood. When I was 4 years old, she told me, I saw the skinny being who appeared in silhouette against my window shade. It was night, but a bright light, perhaps oranges in color, shone from the other side. It's pretty wild reading so far, that's for sure. The other side of the shade. The room was dark except for the illumination outside the shaded window. The being turned to approach me. When I get to this point in the memory, I start shaking my head and saying, "No, no," and then the memory stops. I tell myself if the memory comes over me again, I will get beyond this point and find out what happens next, but I never do. This was also the age, probably not coincidentally, at which she began having sexual fantasies of intrusive, unfamiliar instruments used on her. And additionally, she reported about age 4, I had a sense of something having been put behind my left ear. The next event, possibly related to alien activity, occurred around the age of 14. The onset of an obsession with understanding the workings of the universe, she explained. It was like I awakened to a sense of a cosmic mission, and to an apocalyptic sort of sense of human destiny. I'm sure Christianity had a lot to do with that. I felt I must understand the universe. I began a constant undercurrent of striving which persisted even now, given the reports of other abductees, some of which will be presented later. It was interesting that she related this job and task on Earth to Armageddon. When she was in her late 20s, living in a different location, the next event took place outside the cabin in the Blue Ridge Mountains. She said, very loud stomping like several men in work boots suddenly began on our front porch after no sound of approach. We saw shadowy figures accompany the very low stomping, but I didn't remember it stopping. I recollect we went to sleep in the midst of all this commotion, which of course makes no sense if we were lying only a few yards from prowlers. We awoke in the morning, remembered the stomping and the shadowy figures, and went outside to hunt for footprints and found none. And early 1987, however, Polly had a conscious look at her mysterious intruders. While sick in bed, she said, I had a couple of bedroom visitations by two black-robed figures. They had large slants, glowing lemon-yellow eyes with no pupils, just like lights. The black-robed figures were about 4 feet tall, and they were identical except that one was a little lighter, like charcoal gray instead of black. When they moved, they did everything simultaneously to each other. They glided through my son's toy box. When they left the lower part of their robes, wait a minute. They glided through my son's toy box when they left the lower parts of their robes, just went right through it. Okay. I can relate to that. Polly noted that this event occurred before she had ever seen the cover of Whitley Strieber's Communion or any other representation of the typical gray alien figures. Someone asked me if I had asked the figures what they wanted. My response was no. I didn't want to give them any openers. My feeling was that they had come to take me permanently, and I devoted all my energy to rebuking them. Sounds like Christianity. I did the same thing. The extremely unusual series of events commenced in late 1987. The whole thing started with a dream, Polly explained. I dreamed I was flying over the Atlantic towards the Mediterranean. A white plane with red markings, shaped like a small Concorde, was approaching me from the opposite direction, the east. Shortly after this dream, Polly continued, I noticed that I was having conversations in my head in French. It was most apt to happen around 4 p.m. My communicator identified himself as a professor in a Russian university. I had a sense of it being near Kiev. At night, we would privately beam out psychic messages towards the west in an effort to expose a situation of psychic warfare which he claimed was being waged between political powers worldwide, and in an effort to help bring about peace between the then Russia or USSR and the West. Quote, one thing I remember him saying very strongly was, maintain it, c'est la guru, maintain it, c'est la guru. I don't even know how to pronounce this. He emphasized maintain it, telling me that psychic warfare was now being waged, directed to influence people in high positions and others who could serve the purpose for the perpetrators, perhaps obscure people who could nevertheless influence events and public opinions, end quote. Her last contact with EVAC, E-V-A-C, EVAC, that's how you pronounce it, even EVAC, was in December 1987, as she drove her son through a snowstorm into another town. The driving conditions took all her concentration, so she was startled when the French communication began. Quote, Évêque was saying that he wanted me to join with him in prayer for world peace, so I tried praying in French, and that was a total disaster. I don't remember whose idea it was, but he decided to pray in Latin, and that went much better. I was saying things from the Mass in Latin. She's from Catholic. Clearly seeing the snowy surroundings and competently but just as clearly I began to see, like in some sort of parallel vision, the inside of probably Russian Orthodox cathedral. There was a priest in a dark red robe with some kind of tall, funny hat. The interior was not ornate, but the ceiling was high and there was a lot of rich, polished wood. There was a choir consisting of both men and women. I wish I had had a tape recorder in my head. The choir was singing the most magnificent mass I had ever heard. I could clearly distinguish that it was sometimes a 8-part harmony. It was all in Latin, and it was definitely not any mass that I have sung or heard. This went on for a long time. The whole rest of the ride, I don't recollect it ending, but we did drive at our destination. This was the last time I ever heard from Évêque. That's E-V-E-C. I had the feeling we had accomplished all we could together. He had not been seek. I don't know what that means. He had not been seek. Okay. That last sentence doesn't make any sense. He had not been seek. Don't know what that means. Well, I guess he was trying to say he has not been seeked of, or she wasn't seeking for him. He just showed up. Is that what you're trying to say? Anyways. These two events in 1987, Polly's visitation by the black robed beings and the recurrent telepathic conversation with Évêque, marked the onset of what would prove to be frequent UFO and alien related activities in her family's lives. It seemed to focus on Polly and her youngest child, Sam. A few months after Évêque's last communication, Sam had an encounter that paralleled Polly's experience with the black-robed beings. At age 6, he saw black figures flying about the room. Although they were similar to the beings Polly had witnessed, Sam described these characters as smoke-like with red eyes. They told him, "Come with us, and we'll take you to a better place." But Sam wasn't convinced of their good intentions, and even though he was quite young, he refused the offer. "No way," he replied. "I'm not going anywhere with you guys." After this incident, both he and Polly had a number of experiences involving UFOs. Sightings, mainly witnessed from a nearby hill, and a series of the vivid dream events that indicated repeated alien encounters. We've seen many UFOs with colored lights all around them or shooting out from them, she said, reporting that it was common to see white central lights flashing amber, red, and blue. Interesting to me. Reminds me of static electricity for some reason. This was also the onset of several experiences with what Polly and her families referred to as the elves. These beings, she said, would squeak talk very loud at night and were extremely frightening to another of her children, who also witnessed some of this activity during the most intense period of the activity in 1989 and 1990. Around this same time, in September of 1989, Polly's family also had an experience with a different sort of creature. They perceived it as sloshing through solid matter and moving through physical objects as if they were water. In spite of no clear confirmation with this being, Polly felt that it was reptilian, huge and loud, making crashing sounds in the woods like some very large two-legged creature lumbering through the woods in a very wet area. I've heard somebody have something similar to that doing Bigfoot and poltergeist research in the woods. This sound had no approach and no departure, she said, but there was the definite sense that the perpetrator of all this noise was approaching us. This occurred on a night which included a lot of UFO activity. We witnessed UFOs apparently pursued by fighter reconnaissance at the airbase. Really? Polly, Sam, and others and her family had have had a number of UFO sightings, not only from the hill, but also from other parts of the area. In June 1993, for instance, while Sam was traveling in a car driven by a family friend, he watched 3 UFOs cavort in the sky. Sam saw 3 bright UFOs. Polly related, a bright light suddenly appeared high above and a little ahead of them. It moved quickly downward and then disappeared as suddenly as it had appeared. Then a second appeared suddenly with no gradual approach to the left of where the first one had, and then zoomed across the sky to the right and disappeared. Shortly after this, the car turned onto another street, and Sam watched a third light appear suddenly. It flew a short distance and then went out of sight. Within a matter of a few weeks, Sam had another sighting, this time of 3 UFOs together. And the following month, after yet another impressive sighting, Sam wrote me himself about what he had seen on the night August 19th. The last night was awesome for UFOs, his account began. I saw one triangular shape, one which made a whooshing sound for a long time. It looked like it might have been similar to the triangular one sighted in Belgium in 1988 or 1989. We saw it on TV. The one I saw was flying low, and I had heard a whooshing noise first. Another impressive sighting occurred on August 30th, in the same area of the previous sighting. Sam said that this one was a large diamond or triangular shape with blinking lights on the front and rear. It looked to be really high, he said, but I could still see it good. I could see solid matter inside the light pattern as the UFO arched across the sky. Alien contacts continue to occur, usually recalled at the morning after the event as both dreamlike and yet real. Sam told me of an abduction dream which he found frightening. Polly wrote in December 1992, and this is unusual for him, as he is the only one of my children who seems to seek them and even to miss them. It included some interesting disclaimers to usual UFO contact accounts, such as there was gravity, I was not floating. He said the interior was about 10 feet by 10 feet, rounded on the outside, but he felt inside there were some corners. He said it was spinning and wobbling and throwing him around. He was frightened and recollected not wanting to enter the craft. He also recollected being I can't say the damn word now. He also recollected being able to see out of the window of a craft part of the time and could see stars. He said he felt it was a blessing that he was able briefly to see out. Sam also said he sensed having had contact at some point with bad aliens who are red, not gray, tacitly identifying the ones he had otherwise remembered as grays, the same sort of figure so many other abductees have reported. Even more disturbing for Sam, however, was a dream he reported to Polly on the night of March 3rd, 1993. Sam just took his inside, Polly wrote, to tell me about a dream he had last night. He said, "Can I talk to you in private? It's personal." He has a partial memory of this dream, or else the dream itself was a fragment. He was with some people approaching the entrance to a UFO. He went through an entryway which led to a place that was all white. But he commented, "You know how scientists say dogs are colorblind to our colors? I felt like maybe I was colorblind to their ET's colors, and it wasn't really all white." He said he was in a line with other people, and the person in front of him was older than he. The young man proceeded into the craft and approached a long white tube. He put his penis into the tube. After a little while, he apparently withdrew it and left by some way other than the entrance. Sam was next. He did the same thing with the tube as the man before him had done, but his memory ends at this point. He felt this had something to do with the aliens wanting sperm. He said there was no sound and he did not see any aliens. He kept asking me for reassurance, saying, "That was just a dream, right, Mom?" He does not read about adult level books. And I have never mentioned the sexual intrusions to him. It seems that just in the past year, his experiences have become less agreeable to him. Previously, he was the one of my children who seemed to feel a need and desire for them. That is not completely gone, but certainly some intrusive elements have been introduced. Damn it, Karla. Something is sexually molesting my 11-year-old boy. After pondering on the situation a while, Polly commented, "I think the motive is not sperm gathering, but control. What affects the depths of the human psyche more than issues related to our sexuality? It is a perhaps unadmirable fact that sexual identity is probably the deepest and most primitive and most powerful identity concept that a human being has. Violate sexual identity in a situation where a human is made to believe that he or she is totally powerless, and you have gained a measure of control probably unattainable by any other single fact." Like Polly, I was concerned about Sam's discomfort with the situation and its implications. I was also fascinated by his statement that he had not seen any aliens in the experience. Later, Sam expanded this thought on a tape conversation he and Polly sent me. "In UFO dreams," he said, "after I have done what they make me do, they don't let me see them. It's like they make me want to do it, even though I don't want to. I see maybe them disguised as humans, or humans hypnotizing me. I'm not sure if they're humans." Polly also had a number of abduction or UFO dream events which felt extremely real to her and sometimes included human-looking figures. Many of the details, and some of which will be described below, are amazingly similar to cases I have investigated and which other researchers and abductees have consistently reported. She also occasionally found typical marks on her body, although without any memory of getting them, including IV-type bruises on the bend of her arm and bruises in a triangular patch on her upper arm. Polly's abduction dreams became so frequent and realistic in their details as well as in their effects upon her that in 1991 she began keeping a journal of the dreams and of actual UFO sightings, from which the following excerpts are taken. August 31st, 1991, I was with a group of people in a light-colored room, and aliens were testing us for AIDS. I was found to have some restraint of it. I found to have some restraint. Let me try this again. I was found to have some strain of it, but they seemed to be communicating to me that it would not kill me or even seriously harm me. I don't know if this was because of something they did. Others had it as well. Many of us were in the same situation. I think communication was telepathic. One thing that has characterized my UFO dreams has been an intense feeling of, wow, this is the real thing. This is really happening. Typically, I am out of doors and I see a UFO or UFOs in the sky. They land or one hovers above me. When I feel the dizzying sense of spiraling upward. In a previous event, she had described that one was different because I was conscious of being in my bed and being spun and sucked upward into a UFO. I think my mind was stuck out of my body. Questioning the reality of this dream about AIDS, Polly noted that she had in fact been diagnosed with lupus, oh God, how do I pronounce this? Erythematosus? Erythematosus? I'm not sure. Let's find out. Let's just find out. Lupus erythematosus. I think I pronounced it right. A lupus erythematosus, an autoimmune disorder during her teens. October 19th, 1991. I remember a dream of a week or so ago which involved aliens. I recollect exiting a craft with them. I remember flying before we landed. There were other humans on board. Some of us went up front, but on the lower levels, the underside was clear out glass, but something thick yet perfectly clear. We could see down to a spread out village below. It was daylight. The landscape below was fairly flat, maybe some low hills off to the left beyond the village. We landed, and I remember that I and others exited the craft with the aliens, whose form was like a very simplified human form, no muscle development evident. I think they may have had on form-fitting suits. They had no hair. I recollect something about some covering which had a seam near where an ear would be. But this is a vague memory. They were quite tall, not the 4-foot type. October 23, 1991. I dreamed I was holding a baby for the purpose of healing it. He was in a room at the end of a building that was like a nursery. None of the baby's parents were there. I think I dreamt of a lot of stuff happening in this building. I can still mentally see the face of the baby very clearly. I held it on 2 occasions. It was blond and blue-eyed, a little boy, and could hold himself erect when you picked him up. His eyes were crossed, one worse than the other. That sounds familiar. And as I held him, he started to get a little better. When I held him the second time, he was strong enough that I could prop him on my hip. Then when he was wanting to nurse, I had this really weird thought, sort of apart from the dream, like standing off a little watching the dream. I thought, what if he isn't really a baby? What if he is really some midget pervert? I emphasized this last part because it indicates an awareness that we might be interacting with something less human and less innocent than it seemed. October 26, 1991. I was in some sort of medical situation in which my head was the object of attention. There were doctors around me before my head was the object of attention. I remember sitting up and something about my stomach hurting. I was sitting on something flat, and they were somehow making me travel very fast. I was afraid I would slide off the end and expected them to care. But somehow they did not seem to care. I remember when I sat up, I said I could breathe better that way. Then they were going to put long needle-like things into the sides of my head. I remember thinking in my dream, when the aliens do this, it doesn't hurt. It is just pressure. Then I started saying over and over again, I'm in outer space. I'm in outer space. And they put the long needle things in, and I could sort of hear them going in like a scraping sound and feel pressure but no pain. The next thing I remember, I was like flying from west to east. I approached a 4 corners intersection in the country. I felt like it was just west of the hill where she and her family often witnessed UFO activity. It was like they somehow landed me there at that intersection, and the next thing I remember, my eyes opened abruptly and I was in my room. Then I woke up. When I woke up, I kind of felt different than from the regular dream. Like there was something more real about this experience. It became even more realistic when, in the summer of 1993, Polly came upon that very intersection while out driving. It was a remote, unpopulated area west of the hill. November 17th, 1991, actually sighting, not a dream, returning at night from the mountains which lie to the east of us. I saw a distant UFO. It changed color from red to white to red, etc. But was not a plane because it hopped around so much in all directions. Quick movements. December 21st, 1991. Had dream of sighting and being abducted by UFO. I was with some young man on a roadway on a hillside. I think there were big evergreens around, and down the hill a bit was an open field. We went down to about the middle of the field and looked back up the hill. Soon the UFO appeared, larger and larger as it approached us. It glided low over the field and landed very close to us. My left arm was linked through the young man's right arm. I remember feeling, this is it, like this time it's really coming close. When it landed right near us, I said to the young man, well, here we go. 3 beings came out of the UFO. They were human looking, dressed in black and very dark colors, male and surprisingly taller than we were. I believe they took hold of us and began taking us to the craft, but it didn't feel real unfriendly. The 3 were pretty much identical. I don't remember faces. It was like they had one mind. January 30th, 1992. Had a clear and a detailed UFO sighting dream. It was daylight and I was looking east. I saw a UFO which was white and pale blue against the blue sky. It hovered in one place for a long time while I and others viewed it. I remember looking at the portals or windows. Then there was a scene where the UFO beings were among us and were taking all those who loved war and aggressive military attitudes and actions. They were taking even children. I was not among those taken. We were made to leave, and we knew that the military-minded would suffer, and we felt really bad for them. I think a lot of the aliens were tall and close to human-looking, but also others were sort of like the Greys, but I think lighter. I know some had big eyes. February 28, 1992. Major UFO dream. Felt very real. I was standing with another person and people may have been first in my car, me driving. I saw them, UFOs, above and got out, pulled over to the left. I think there was one we saw very clearly and 2 others more distant. There were also planes up there, military-looking planes, and I remember feeling this was so realistic. We waved our arms to draw attention, and the clearest one began coming near. I was thinking, they are going to take us. How am I going to deal with this? And then it was like the atmosphere of my mind changed. I was suddenly in a state of mind where I could handle this, not going into some kind of fear shock that at the absolute strangeness of it. The UFO was sort of grayish, not at all lit, and some aliens approached us, also grayish. They were not human looking. I think they were 3, but I especially focused on one who was either sort of leaning forward so that his head was more noticeable than any other part of him, or else I just noticed his head the most. I said something to the effect that we were really going with them, and in my altered state of mind, I felt I could where did I just lost myself here? In my altered state of mind, I felt I could do it, but I knew I would be subjected to them in the craft. It was like I knew, but in my altered state, well, I can't turn back now. Might as well accept it. After that, I don't remember anything. I think I felt a little responsible, like I had involved the people with me in this, and maybe it was not good for them. I had a slight bloody nose when I woke up, but think it was related to a cold. June 23rd, 1992, recounting an actual event that had preceded the dream. My son Sam and I felt compelled to go up on the hill at 10:30 p.m. as there was a glow in the sky which we felt must be from the sun, as it is not much after the longest day of the northern country. I didn't understand that. Okay, we felt compelled to go up to the hill at 10:30 p.m. as there was a glow in the sky which we felt must be from the sun, as it is not much after the longest day in the north country. Okay. Yeah, well, summer solstice, yeah. I get it. When we got up there, we felt intensely peaceful. Everything was very, very still, although there is often a wind up there when there is none anywhere else. There were a few fireflies. Then I saw a large, brighter flash of light in the grass across the road from where we sat. I said to Sam, nothing is really happening, but I feel like if we stay any longer, it will. I felt that if we continued to sit there with our minds focused, we could interact with some energy there and something would happen. I felt it had already begun to happen, but that we still had the option of breaking it off and leaving. They returned home, and that night Patty had a UFO dream. I was walking or otherwise traveling along a road at night, she described. I first saw lights and then saw UFOs around, a little bigger than stars, and not as bright as stars. And they were up to my right, quite near the tops of trees, and I said, wow, I'm really seeing them. Then I looked up, and there was one overhead which descended closer and closer to me. I could clearly see the round bottom part, like an opening. I said, with a little fear, okay, take me. At this point, I felt a feeling of being lifted, which was like no feeling I can adequately describe. It was like being sucked by force, a dizzying, blinding, overwhelming force. While it was happening, I felt intensely that the experience was absolutely real, and in most dreams, it never occurs to me to pass judgment on the reality of anything. I was sort of afraid, totally caught up in it, literally and figuratively, very aware of the sense that it was real, and feeling, well, I am in it now, so wherever I'm going is not under my control. I couldn't see much, but I felt such an incredible feeling of being lifted higher and higher, like it took my mind. After the lifting, I was aware of being in a white place, but it was not the standard round white room of many UFO reports. I think it was white like white paint, and I recollected a corner which is also not typical, and some sort of black or dark object. It was like I was seeing only one little part of this place. Another thing I recollect was being in some sort of craft and being behind the pilot, who sat on the left side and noticing his head. It was hairless and apparently with a skull similar to ours, and the skin was white like putty. He turned towards me and appeared to have on some sort of clown mask. What? Although it did not really look like our typical clowns. It had a color of orange on it and was otherwise white like plastic. The feeling I got from this pilot was of a detached sort of kindness. Not any malevolence, but also nothing that could really be called emotion. I have some recollection of coming into a base or land while in the craft. It was light, like daylight, whereas I had been abducted in the dark of night. I could see a building, I think, with a flat roof, and the outdoor area to my right of the building I could vaguely recollect at some point desiring to see more clearly and them doing something so that I could, and things came into better focus. In the outdoor area besides the building, there were flowers and shrubs and children playing, human children. The pilot was still with me when I found myself inside the building. He said they called us something like the short round ones. And it sounded to me models of humans between 3 and 4 feet tall. These models looked to be made out of hard plastic and something similar, and were orange and white. I pointed out to the pilot that I was exactly his height, 5'7". He was thinner built, but a human man. Maybe a little lighter weight than I, though I am small-boned. A few other aliens were present also. In this building were some human children. Now that I think of it, in my waking state, maybe they called us the short round ones because they have so many other children. Our children, when healthy, are rounder than others. They appeared thin weight and lightweight, but it was hard to judge because they were clothed. I don't have a clear recollection of their clothing. I think light-colored jumpsuits. I felt I was not the only adult human there, but that there were more human children present than human adults. Near me was a little blonde-headed boy about 3 years old. I picked him up and held him, and he really seemed to like that. Then I said, "Where is your mommy?" And he looked sad and didn't say anything. I got the strong feeling that the pilot who stood to my left and others of his kind very much disapproved of my asking that question. Then I noticed a little girl, also blonde. I feel she was 11 years old for some reason, though I think she was more the size of an average 9-year-old. I asked her if she was the boy's sister, and she said no. I had the feeling this is weird, had no kin people with them. The little girl also seemed sad. I remember feeling grateful that they hadn't taken my children from me, but I was sad about these children and many others. There was a big window arch at the end at my right. Outside the window was a little play yard. A dark-haired human woman was tending a group of human children. I felt she was not kind to them, except that they were all human. I don't see the other adults whom I felt were there somewhere. I recollect that there was a process of returning me, but I don't remember it in any detail now. I felt that the experience within the piloted craft seemed staged somehow for the benefit of my belief system, but the intense lifting feeling felt somehow necessary and real. January 24th, 1993. 3 nights in a row I have had dreams including UFOs, a craft, and beings. The next night, in actual awake reality, I watched UFO activity in the sky. 2 luminous fiery balls, a little bigger than basketballs. One of Polly's most vivid and recent dream events, she reported to me at length in a letter complete with drawings of the creatures she remembered seeing. It's pretty wild. I don't know what to think about any of this, except it feels and sounds familiar. There was a big window arch at the end of my right, and outside the window was a little play yard. And a dark-haired woman was tending a group of human children, and I felt she was no kind to them, except that they were all human. I did not see any other adults whom I felt were there. Somewhere. Okay, I know I read that. Oh, here it is. We could get down here. Took a break, so took a nap. On the night of June 27th, 1993, she wrote, I had dreams which included vivid visual impressions of aliens and appearances of very bright, very real feeling lights. The aliens did not look like what I would have depicted if you had said, draw a typical alien. The characteristics were a pronounced brow ridge, convulsions or folds on the forehead, besides the eyes back under shelter of brow ridge, gray or gray-green skin. They were proportionately tall and thin. They were at least 3, and I am pretty sure more are standing close together than I have drawn them. I am not sure about my depictions of nose, mouth, for the nose and mouth were somehow represented. I'm also not sure about the details of the lower body. I remember being utterly fascinated with their brow folds and the folds beside their black eyes, but not looking directly into those eyes. Also with the texture of their fairly tough skin, which was sort of like an artist's kneaded eraser. I have a recollection of having been very close to the one on your left and drawing. So close that my face was right up by the right hand side of the face. Looking closely at those folks, then I recollect being back a little further from them, seeing a group standing together. But I don't know what happened first. I felt as I awakened that what I retained were two fragments of a much more detailed experience, as if I had sort of mentally photographed those two segments to bring back as souvenirs, yes. It was almost as if they possessed for these, almost as if they posed for these memories. That is why I could get so close to that one without having to become engulfed by his eyes, and it is why they stood so obligingly in the little group. Polly and Sam reported these and a number of other experiences for almost a year, many of which seemed to be reflections or memories of fairly current experiences. And once she felt more comfortable with our relationship, she was able to address the sexual issue. This is pretty fucked up. And the amazing thing is what they're saying, you could overlay this right over all these people's religious experiences. Christian or not, whatever, it's the same old story. Just packaged in a different way. So what is happening to us? Anyways, and shared the painful memories of her childhood. The area of my psychology, which I feel has been most damaged by them or by some very early influence, she confided, is the area of my sexual concepts. At approximately age 4, I began obsessing with sadomasochistic sexual imagery. The image involved a little girl on a flat table similar to a doctor's exam table, but I think it may have been metallic looking, silver metallic, a little grayer than the actual silver. I remember being obsessed with these images day in and day out, and I would try to detach from them by saying that the little girl was not me, but yet at the same time I knew it was. Sometimes there would be one person doing things to the little girl, and sometimes several. And there were generally those who observed I had the sense of both males and females present. Occasionally a female would do a procedure, but more often a male. There were machines involved, as well as probes and needles. The intrusions involved what I now understand to be the genital area, but I did not understand at the time, as well as the rectum. Also, I do recollect needles to the navel, and this now makes sense when I read adult women's accounts of intrusions through the navel. My sense of the people, if ever was clear, is now indistinct. My early medical history does not include anything like this. One thing I did, which I could have been a cry for help and an attempt to resolve this situation, was that I drew pictures of these events. I remember especially at 5 and 6 drawing a little girl on the table and the people around her with the intrusive machines. I showed these pictures to my mother, but I have no recollection of her reaction, except that I don't think she shamed me. If I had been molested by adult female members, I don't think I could have had images of an exam table and needles associated with machinery, especially at the age of 3 or 4. I think these images had to have come from some source outside of my own imagination. This early influence inspired my sexuality with the dynamics of sadomasochism. I feel this imprinting set me up to be victimized and set me up to expect all sexual encounters to involve humiliation and by domination. In fact, she said whenever she found herself in power sex situations, there was a voice that would talk to me and say, everything is right on schedule. Everything is going as planned. But the plan did not prove benevolent toward me. The overall discernible effects of all their experiences on Polly and Sam, and to this point, are several. Sam has an overly mature outlook for his age, evidencing an interest in questions of cosmic importance, including reincarnation and the history of the human race. And after the sperm-taking scenario, he is also, according to Polly, very uncomfortable with the idea of alien intrusions upon his developing sexuality. For Polly, too, the sexual aspects of her life have been altered by these events. She avoids sexual involvements now, and in an attempt to regain control over the compulsions that have caused many problems in her past. Well, I lost my, where am I? Oh shoot. I read that. Where am I at? Am I in the same? Okay, so I'm going to have to figure what the hell happened here. Oh, how did I get all the way to 130? How the hell did that happen? Oh boy. Well, at least get to see some drawings. Still can't figure out how that happened. What button did I hit? Are we at 43? Missed. Nope, we're not there. This must be Lisa. Nope. Okay, here we are. She has no explanation for the alien intrusions into her family's life. Only a strong sense that this involvement has been with her for a very long time. Most of it has been unseen. In addition, as part of the UFO events, Polly has experienced internal communications from spirits, although she cannot identify them more specifically. They so often enter, or I enter them in a sense, she explained, in a sense in which we each or all allow each other to be there simultaneously. I do not know if this is a UFO thing, but they are multidimensionals. Her experiences comprise many elements: UFO sightings, entity encounters, dream events, physical effects, spiritual teachings, and a sense of an unknown mission she must perform. It's always the same thing, isn't it? It's the same thing as near-death experiences and these religious experiences, and it all does is make you crazy. And their experiences, Polly and Shame, and I don't mean it disrespectfully. I mean, what I mean by that is it just makes you very delusional. You can't help it. I mean, and it's across the board. I mean, I've gone through my own experience, so yeah. I mean, I should believe that Jesus is real, so not to be disrespectful to those who do believe it, but if you do your homework, you're going to realize, nah. And these things keep using Jesus as like a cover. They pretend to be Jesus. Or others, mystics or holy men, or gods. These are red flags. Polly and Sam have both felt positive and negative presences, fellowship and fright, which makes it hard to place all the events into a single framework. The act of a single group. There is also the question of human involvement, since both of them report encounters with humanoid figures that have not yet been clearly discerned or identified. So you got hominids and humanoids and what the heck. The amassed data from reports like Polly's show that the abduction agenda is much too complex for any of the current explanations, both in events and in their effects on individuals involved. Certainly on the individual level, the phenomena is profoundly disturbing and transforming. But it is even more so when the massive numbers of people having abductions is considered. The agenda, given this level of pervasiveness, must involve much more than the transformation of the individual. The entire society is beginning to feel its effect, and there would seem, from the testimony of witnesses like Polly and the other women in this project, to be much more yet to come. To be much more yet to come. Now we're at case 4 here, I guess. Or subject 4, Lisa. Whereas the accounts from Polly and Pat contain several elements that may not be familiar to most students of the abduction phenomena, Lisa's experiences are much more typical, in one sense, comprising many reluctant details, although as these accounts are meant to show, the accepted definition of the typical abduction is wholly inadequate. A 35-year-old wife and a mother of 2 children, Lisa and her husband, Nell, have lived in southern Alabama for the past 15 years. Her medium built and thin brown hair reflects her ancestry of Italian and Scotch-Irish. To all outward experiences, Lisa's life seems quite normal. While her husband works at a good job in heavy industry, Lisa takes care of her home and children, involved in the usual activities of a family with teenagers. She enjoys gardening as well as more strenuous outdoor activity. I met Lisa and Nell while I was in Florida to give a presentation on abduction research. Several of the local UFO groups members invited me to one of their homes for a more informal and intimate discussion. And when I described a few of the less well-known events some abductees have reported, Lisa suddenly became very interested. We spoke privately, and she told me that some of the things I had just discussed were familiar to her and from her own experiences. Lisa had some conscious memories of encounters with the typical Greys, as well as missing time episodes, multiple witnessed UFO sightings, unexplained body marks, telepathic communication from unseen sources, and many dream memories of ambiguous reality, except in those instances where other evidence pointed to an actual event. While the details of Lisa's lifelong involvement are clearly very typical, the alien intrusions are clearly more intense and frequent than in many such cases. Equally intense are her emotional reactions to these encounters and her need for help in coping with them. Meeting other abductees has helped me feel not so isolated, she wrote me shortly after the first meeting, but my depression is still severe. I cannot believe I have them alien interactions so frequently. If they're trying to wear me down, they've about succeeded. The flashbacks just don't yet make sense, and maybe they have no intentions to. I am starting to have military flashbacks, and my phone clicks and goes crazy. The Morse code and humming in my ear has literally driven me up the wall. I don't want to be used for experiments or reproduction, but how do I stop them? I pray until sometimes I'm prayed out. Why won't God help? By the way, I don't feel special or chosen like they said. I began my investigation with Lisa by asking about another unusual childhood events. Her responses showed a pattern of activity going back as far as she could remember. The sounds of things walking through the house, she said, have been going on since I was small. Shadows, dimly discernible figures, happen more in my later life from 20 years old on. Like I said, they do it, appear right in front of me. She also recalled episodes of missing time and childhood. I would go to the woods we owned. Oh, I did it again. No, I didn't do it. 25 acres when I was a child and come back and it would be dark. The missing time experiences still occur. Now I look at the clock and roll over and look at it again, and sometimes it will be an hour later and other times 4 hours, she explained, and I could swear I had been but a few minutes ago. It could have been just a few minutes ago. I'm not saying that right. I, and I could swear it had been but a few minutes. It makes me disoriented after I realize there's been some missing time. It's hard to go on when something robs you in your life. Something robs you of your life. I know I have no memory of it. I'm trying to figure out a way to read this. And because my issue obviously is the MS, dyslexia. I got a lot of things wrong. And so I'm trying to get the right lighting so I'm able to focus. It was super bright. It's straining my eyes. Do I go all red? What would happen if I just go all red and see what happens? Who knows? The grays appeared about 3 or 4 years ago. She continued, before that, I didn't know what was causing these things. Now someone's calling. Just like this book's saying. Hello? Hello? This is he. I don't own any property. I'm a renter. All right, you take it. And just like that, just like clockwork, just like this. And you know, I'm getting used to it because you know what? I start to see that this overlording spirit thing, this energy, just likes to fuck with us. And it doesn't matter who you are. And that's all it is. It's a whole bunch of fuckery is what it is. 100% it's all it is fuckery. So try to take it personally is not worth it because everyone else is doing it. I mean, we should take it personally in the sense that what the hell is going on and what's going on that happened to the vast majority of us. I would say I would not be surprised all of us at some level or another, as we've been so screwed with that the things that are responsible for this need to be held seriously accountable. If there is anything kind of justice, then that justice is going to have to come from us against them. Somehow we got to figure out how to do that. That's how I see it. That might sound strange, but when you think about it, it's not so strange. But you have to put some time to thinking about it. Soul Trap Matrix, baby. We live in the Soul Trap Matrix. And the things that are around us, that's all they want is to make sure that we're confused, bewildered, and suffering. And then we believe that what they've given us is the answer, so that we come back here over and over again. But I don't feel like coming back anymore. In 1980, however, Lisa did see these things very different from the shadows, terrifying events. And a being appeared to me. She recalled when I was a couple of weeks pregnant. Sure enough, we had. How much is this biochemical too, though? And then affects our neurology. Anyways. We had just gotten bed, and Neil already seemed out of it, and being appeared at the end of the bed, squatting, telling me mentally the child I was carrying was special and it would be a boy. Always got to be that way. I almost had a fainting spell. I threw the covers over my head as the being was leaping towards me. Why didn't you take your pillow and throw it at it? That would have been a good idea, I think. I believed and said, in Jesus' name, take it away. It disappeared and I fell quickly to sleep. Did it take it away? The stuff seems to have kept coming back to her. So nothing actually really did go away, right? It just changed its performance, its appearance. I was about 3 or 4 feet tall, dark-skinned and leathery looking, like it's all straight up like a prune, I bet. And I fell quickly asleep. Okay, I am not having success with this. It's really man, I'm going blind too. I might have to get new glasses. Is that what I have to do? I just might have to get new glasses already. All right. Where was at this? It was leathery looking. I don't remember anything else. The child indicating, incidentally, did turn out to be a boy. Now he is in his teens. He has proven to be extraordinarily intelligent, with an IQ net tested above 140 when he was 7. Really? Get a knock from the Jesuits? Knock on the door from the Jesuits? After going through Lisa's early memories, I asked her to find out a preliminary questionnaire, or fill out a preliminary questionnaire, which focused on a number of events, most often reported by abductees. A comprehensive comparative chart of the responses to the questionnaires by all 8 women is presented on page 231. Because Lisa's experiences are so very typical, however, many of her responses will be discussed here in some detail as representative of reports from numerous abductees. She had already mentioned a couple of these things. The old phone call disturbances, the beeping and humming sounds in her ears. There were other details, internal and external, which are often part of the alien abduction phenomenon. For instance, there were sightings of unexplained lights within the house as well as in the sky. Lisa described large whitish yellowish lights in the sky that blinked out like a light switch, fast-moving streaks of light. And fast-moving streaks of light. She has also witnessed large and small balls through the windows from craft outside. I missed this one. Why am I having such a hard time seeing? She also witnessed large and small balls of red and white lights bouncing in the house, okay, and blue, orange, and white lights flooding in through the windows from craft outside. A couple of passages from her journal show some of these typical events. August 10, 1993, when I got ready to go to sleep at 11:30 or so, my cat noticed it, then I did, a small ball of light bouncing through the room. It was just zipping around. I probably saw it for 15 seconds. Then it went out of the room. In the morning, my eyes were burning and irritated. August 24, 1993. Woke at 1 a.m. felt something was happening, looked around the room, fell back to sleep, woke up at 4:25 a.m. with a white light turning like strobe lights outside my bedroom window. Before I could race to the window, it was gone. My eyelids were very swollen in the morning, and also my back hurt. Now, how much is this power suggestion, too? March 27, 1993. Felt uneasy, like having a nightmare, struggling and thrashing about, and then feeling sort of paralyzed. I felt the need to scream and resist, and I yelled no 2 or 3 times, trying to wake Neil up. I grabbed onto him, and I was being lifted off the bed by a force, but I struggled and somehow broke out of it. When I looked around the room, a reddish-orange light flashed in the house and then went to the side, and it seemed white. This was about 1 to 1:20 a.m. Another common report involves bizarre, unexplained behavior of electrical equipment in the abductee's environment. And as an excerpt from Lisa's journal shows, this has also frequently occurred with her and Neil. At 3 a.m., my husband and I were wakened up by the radio going crazy, the front porch light blinking, and the touch light lamp in the living room on bright. Even the phone began to act oddly, ringing and crackling incessantly with no one on the other end of the line. Finally, we just had to unplug the phone. Her journal noted, "I was scared." This was not an isolated event. As other entries in her journal show, on May 10th, 1993, about midnight or so, the kids' radio came on, and a lamp in the living room came on twice. Neil and I had disturbed sleep. Unexplained activity of the helicopters over the home, following, as it does so often after UFO activity, show up in Lisa's case. For her, it began early in 1993, as her journal notes. March 15, 1993, about 12:20 or 12:23 a.m., I saw some beautiful blue lights coming down the hallway through a window from a craft near the house. Then somewhere around that time, I heard a helicopter over our house by my bedroom window. It stayed for a while, then left. It appeared on the scene moments after the craft was leaving. Couldn't sleep rest of the night. May 29, 1993 at 3:30 p.m. My son and I saw a dark helicopter pass over our house. September 22, 1993, helicopters were still flying at 11 p.m. The humming and Morse code were almost deafening again. September 23, 1993, went to bed around 11:30. So I see this progressive thing going on here. Well, it was March, May, then nothing low in summer, then builds up again in September. But that's not really building up. That's just, anyways. September 23, 1993, went to bed about 11:30. I dreamt about Grace telling me how easy it was to get me. Then it changed to a room where there were autopsies going on. Somebody human sounding was talking, and a woman was lying on a table who had been done. in quotes. They said some people had a Y incision and some a straight incision. She was a white one, probably in her 40s. Also, sometime during the night, a helicopter was flying close to our house, but I could not get up and fell back asleep. So tired in the morning. Lisa has many of the symptoms typically reported by other abductees, including stress, sleep disturbance, depression, and a sense of having a job or task to perform. Disturbing dreams of massive UFO landings and widespread disasters. How long have they been playing that game, that Phil? How many thousands of years? I feel they have said they love me and that I was special. Yeah, sure. And they say that I will be used for some purpose. Lisa commented, probably to tell others about them. I've had dreams telling me to go to isolated places and store food. Can't remember more. I have had small glimpses of catastrophes. Just a flash of severe starvation. Not enough to remember. A journal entry from December 1992 records one of the dreams of massive UFO represents, which is very commonly reported. In this dream, Lisa notes, I was in the dark with someone looking at the night sky. The spaceships were coming and landing, and I told someone they are finally coming. Among the events of actual abduction scenarios, whether recalled consciously, in flashbacks, or in memories surrounding in dreams, surfacing in dreams, Lisa's experiences include almost every type of reported event. Most women, for instance, have undergone physical, specifically gynecological, examinations while in the hands of the aliens. Lisa's account echoes the usual scenario, beginning with the memory of being on their spacecraft on a small examination table, all scrunched up. My legs were put as close to my body as possible. They had something holding me open while they inserted something or did their exam. The table seemed to be at their height. Seems like there were two of them. I remember looking up between my legs and the alien looking back at me. It seemed to be very uncomfortable. I can't remember more after looking at the grays. On another occasion, Lisa remembers being less cooperative during the exam, giving them a hard time about being examined. I remember asking them, how would you like me to do this to you? I don't know what they said. I'm sure they sedated me. The following morning, she suffered from a sore chin and a bruise on top of her right wrist. A journal entry from July 1993 shows how disturbed she has felt during some of these examinations. And why not bruise around her genitals? That usually happens when you're having some that kind of... Anyways. Okay. A journal entry from July 1993 shows how disturbed she has felt during some of these examinations. Had a dream of being on their spaceship in a huge room on a table with the old one examining me, she noted. I was fine until he showed me an instrument. I can't remember it now. He was going to use it on me. Then I got upset. He placed his hands on my head. I don't remember anything else. Lisa also recalls more than once being showed alien or hybrid babies. An entry from October 1993 states, I gave birth to a fair-looking baby and called it a star baby. It had real light blue eyes with unusual pupils. One of the most commonly reported events is that of an alien's face up very close to the abductee's face. Some researchers, taking their cue from abductees' descriptions of this event, call it a mind scan. And whatever else this actually does, it certainly seems to control the abductees mentally. Lisa remembers this occurring on several occasions. The ETs like to put their noses almost to my nose, kind of like somebody kissing you, right? She explained how many times she kissed somebody or made out with somebody, had sex with somebody that she's embarrassed that she had sex with. I wonder how much of this is a flashback to all this too. Just guessing, just asking. She explained then, and when they done this, I just stared in their eyes. Sometimes that all I ever saw, their eyes, nothing else that happens. Nothing else is happening. Besides being told by the aliens that she is special and chosen, as often happens, with others, Lisa has also recalled scenarios of training and instruction. In a November 1993 dream, for example, she was in a brightly lit room talking with some people who identified her, whose identity she cannot recall or can't recall. They were telling Lisa how she should go about discussing the aliens with other people. I was being told I needed to learn better how to speak about them, she said. I'm having a hell time reading. This might be futile. It just might be futile at this point. Well, talk about strange lights of green and blue and red and white lights. Christmas parade, which was down my road. Weird, and it was like all these like heavy equipment, like backhoes and stuff like that, all decorated Christmas lights, and the local band, the high school band, marching down the street. I didn't know we were supposed to have. There was some kind of Christmas thing going on today downtown. I guess I should have assumed that, but I shouldn't. That doesn't mean so, but it's kind of ironic. More synchronicity. Human-made lights and humans' imaginations in celebrating Christmas, which is something we keep hearing in these stories about Jesus. Something to think about. Seriously. And I'm struggling terribly with reading, but I'll just keep plugging along, because until I figure out something better to do. So now we're at August 16th, 1993. So a lot of this is happening in 1993 in her journals, obviously. In one dream, Neil and I were raising weird creatures. And another part was the aliens were telling me how they have been genetically altering us gradually. I felt like we were their pet project or something. August 20th, 1993. Woke up at 2 a.m. and at 5:53 a.m. I got up and went to the kitchen for something to eat. That's a long time. I thought you woke up at 2 a.m. and that's like almost 3 hours later. And had a dream of an ape or gorilla, whatever you want to call them, sitting on my bed, holding my hands, and someone was saying, "They are you and you are them." Is this Bigfoot? Is this what we're talking about now? Hominids? Very nauseated in the morning and had sweated very badly last night. Other more specific physical effects have also been reported in Lisa's experiences. In addition to the nausea and eye irritations, she suffered after certain abductions and abduction dreams. Lisa has also found patterns of bruises, puncture marks that couldn't be accounted for in any mundane way. She has the well-known scoop marks, for example, one of her lower right legs, and another on her upper part of her right arm, which are permanent. Temporary marks, however, are much more commonly reported. In Lisa's case, these have included a triangle of circular bruises on her hip. The triangle pattern shows up more frequently than any other designed scattered bruises on other body parts, such as the bridge of the nose, the bottom and top heel or foot of the foot, the wrist inside the arm, very close to the armpit, also around her knee, and on top of the hand. But bruises aren't the only marks that show up. Like Polly and others, Lisa has found damaged areas in the bend of her elbow and scratches, which she is certain were not accidentally inflicted, in unusual places. After one particular abduction in October 1993, in which she recalled being in a pool of water with the aliens around her before they took her to an examination room. Lisa found a scratch across her lower left jaw, as well as 2 bruises on the outside of her left knee. She had patterns of bruises which are so commonly reported that we have come to refer them to as clamp marks, because they appear to have been left by either 3 or 4 fingered hands grasping the upper arm or the thighs very forcefully. All these physical effects are very familiar in abduction reports, as are instances of blood found on the abductee's body and bedclothes after an encounter. Lisa, too, has had this occur in situations where the blood could not be explained as coming from a bloody nose or some other injury. It is clear then that Lisa's abduction situation has involved more of the typical scenarios and events, even including episodes where she has been shown how to operate a craft. Why would they do that? And has been warned about the physical dangers of touching a craft during certain phases of operation. But she has also experienced several of the less familiar events. Less familiar, that is, in terms of abduction research findings, which have been made public. Regrettably, much of what abductees have reported has not been publicized for a number of reasons. In some cases, as with alien-human sexual activity, this may be because so many abductees are unwilling to talk about such intimate things. In other cases, it is the researchers themselves who are reluctant to expose some aspects of the events, fearing they will push the credibility of their audience. Especially their desired audience of professionals and academics, too far. Some parts of this phenomenon, they fear, are simply not politically acceptable, no matter what the abductees themselves insist they have experienced. Lisa and several others of the women whose experiences are recorded in this book, therefore, are to be commended for their courage in discussing these aspects. I agree with that. If this is legit, I agree with that. Because then you have to deal with the ridicule and the judgment, which I understand. The first highly controversial area is that of sexual activity. It is important to remember when reading the following journal entries that the aliens have superb virtual reality capabilities, and that without external verification, it is impossible to know if the memory or dream of an encounter reflects an actual event. This is especially important when assessing reports of sexual activity with the aliens. For in some situations, people tell of seeing celebrities, religious figures, and even dead acquaintances. One of the first sexual situations Lisa remembers happened in late 1989, beginning with her conscious awareness of the aliens' presence. Lying in bed, she woke up and saw a group of aliens, one of which held a wand-like instrument around the bed. Wand, fairies, wands, gnomes, wands. All these different, they call them different things, different time periods, but they all have these wands. The tallest of the beings was touching Neil's chest. I looked at them, Lisa explained, and told them not to touch him and to leave him alone. That's the night I got to see them for a few seconds in an unaltered state. Then they pointed their wand at my forehead and made me feel dizzy, and I was out. I believe that's the night they made me have sex while they watched. To have sex with who? Let's find out. The sexual interaction involved another abductee. Lisa said the man gave her his name as T.M. I guess it's Reese. It's R-E-I-S-S. I want to say Reese, but it could be Russ. And it could be something else too, which he spelled for her. He told me that, because I don't know why, because you just said Reese, that would have been, anyways. He told me that they had been abducting him since he was a child. She said he was very sorry. In a couple of sexual scenarios, Lisa recalled interacting with creatures of some sort. These types of bizarre reports turn up less frequently in the research, but they are not unheard of. She recalled the first episode as a dream event, in which she and a gorilla-type creature were sexually engaged. Like a Bigfoot? Like a hominid? Imagine that. Lisa woke up after having this dream when the sound of a breathing device brought her to consciousness. She saw a dim figure in a doorway step out of sight, and then, as unlikely as such a response always seems in these situations, she went back to sleep. The action, however, was not yet over. At 3:25, she woke up again, flinging her arms about and trying to arouse Neil, who was completely unresponsive. She saw a lighted object outside the bedroom window, and she could feel an energy controlling her body. They had some force on me, she said, stopping me from getting up. And when the craft outside started to, this must be a Freudian slip, and when a craft outside started to lift up, it broke the force. I ran outside, but I really can't say for sure if I saw something. Another occasion, while lying down during the day, Lisa dreamed about a number of sexual situations. Something like a small horse was involved, as well as a dolphin, some grays, and a dark, leathery, scaly creature whose features she couldn't clearly recall. After waking from this dream, Lisa experienced the humming and Morse code noise that occasionally plagued her internal hearing. You know, this is interesting, and I would not be surprised that all of us and throughout our life have had these kind of dreams or visions, or our imagination runs wild and think, I wonder what it would be like with another animal type of thing. I know that's strange to say that, and I 99% of us, right, or more, would squash that and say, oh, that's too sick, I'm not going there, I'm not going down that road, right? But some people don't. They're into bestiality for whatever God reason there is. You know, I have no idea why anybody would so desire that, but maybe you're so sexually repressed and so sexually driven that you start thinking about these things. It's not so hard to think about it. It's hard to stay in the thinking of it. I can't understand that, or imagine that, you know what I mean? That's like I always say, humans' imagination is a double-edged sword. It's our greatest gift and our greatest curse. After a similar dream in which Lisa was placed with several animals in sexual situations while being observed, how do you have sex with other animals? I mean, I've heard of women have sex with horses. I imagine women could have sex with monkeys or apes. I don't know. I haven't seen anything of the sort in my life. But you know, thanks to like the Godfather movies, maybe that's been put in for his minds. Whoever watched that, you know, women having sex with a horse or animals. I mean, the Bigfoot thing, I imagine could be possible. Although, They seem to be rather well endowed, allegedly. Or maybe it's just, hormones running amok and the sex drive, and you know, uh, maybe she needed a vibrator. I'm not being a jerk about what I just said there. I'm just saying, there are certain times in your life, in your certain in development, and that your sex drive is stronger than other times, right? And masturbation is. Let's put it this way: if you're a young person and you're not doing it, you're the exception. I know we're not allowed to talk about that, as if there's something wrong with that, because of all the things, the messages we've been told growing up, and because of the oppressive nature of society as a whole. But the fact of the matter is, the spilling one seed and women ejaculating on their own and men doing the same thing is quite normal. So maybe there's something connected with that too, right? I wonder if she would have those same experiences. Is there any test on that? I'm bringing this up not to be a jerk or be a pervert. I'm just saying, listen, I'm just bringing it up because is there a study that says what happens when you sexually repress yourself to the point that you start having these kind of fantasies, and thinking about it is not the same thing as carrying it out all the way, right? And here's the other thing, and even having a slight notion of it doesn't mean, when I say carrying about, I'm not even talking about the act. I'm talking about carrying it all the way through and visualizing and fantasizing what it would be like to have sex with an animal or a different creature or a different, mammal or fish or whatever. And sometimes you end up doing something. Maybe you will. I don't know. I don't think people should be condemned for that. What I mean by that is, we don't know all the circumstances that person went through. And so, my point, ultimately, in the day is there any case studies going on when it comes to human sexuality in dreams and fantasies and this side of things called bestiality? How much research is actually being done on it? As unpleasant as it sounds, and it sounds awful, but that doesn't make it probably shouldn't be done because, we could probably learn a lot about the human psyche and about our own the biochemistry in human beings. And there's another thing about these lice. How often were these lice being talked about prior to, say, Christmas? And people having Christmas lights on their trees and Christmas strung up in their neighborhood and stuff like that. Is there a correlation with that? How are we to know that? The only way to know that is maybe compare different cultures and societies and communities in which they don't do that and those that do that. To see if they have these kind of visions, if you will, and dream states. I'm not saying that there's not orbs and there's not things that we call UFOs, unidentified effing objects. But that doesn't mean that they're really connected. And how much of this has to do with our own mundane existence, our own shallow existence? Isn't this how they suck us into religion in the first place? And all these other cults and cult mentality is because of our mundane, unnatural existence. And then there's the other side of this too. There's another side of this, the hardship of life, the physical hardship of life, the day-to-day existence and getting up and making the most of it. And most of us will never, we are. You should know, if you haven't figured it out, that the one celebrity represents 1 in a million, and the rest of us live our very mundane lives. And we compare our lives with everyone else's instead of just living our own. So how much of this is just truly psychological, psychosomatic, the psychoid, and all this other stuff that Freud talks about, right? And actually, this should be an excellent book to read. The Red Book, or whatever the hell it is. or the one book that at least he talks about when he talks about these things like UFOs and all that, because there is the psychological side of it, and then there's the physical side of it, and then there's all the other aspects to it. It doesn't fit in a nice, neat package. And people want it to be that way, so you can just move on with their lives, right? They can make a choice on which side they want to, which team they want to be on. Are UFOs real, or if they're not? Well, the problem is that's not the right answer. The right answer is, what are people seeing with in real life? What are they experiencing when they're conscious and aware? And what do they experience in the subconscious? There's multiple. I mean, this should be, I would think, and I'm surprised that there's such, even 2023, it's still hard to find more literature on that aspect of it, the broader aspect of it. I can't wait to read the Eighth Tower from Veal. Did I say his name right? Keel, not Keel, John Keel. What am I saying? Veal. And it's just the connections between religion, a religious background, the delusion. I mean, you know how many times people have these encounters with these quote-unquote aliens, and Jesus shows up. And their experience, whether in the subconscious or in a conscious state. There's so much going on here that meets and then we're talking about plasma, and then the universe allegedly is made up of 99% plasma, sentient plasma, this super force, this super conscious that they like to call, that physics like to talk about, but with it, and people then like to interpret that as God or whatever. But you know, the more you study this stuff, the more you realize we don't really know much about our reality. Outside of maybe the workplace, the people we hang out with on the weekends for a little bit, we don't even know them very well. We don't even know our own fellow employees that well. And everyone seems to be nothing but chatterboxes. Maybe I'm guilty of it as well, but no, I don't think the way other people think. I'm thinking about my son. How am I going to talk to him? Because he's like his old man. He's recognizing he's not like the rest of them. He's not like everybody else. And it's going to be a great struggle because he's going to have a difficult time conforming. And I don't want him to conform, Frank, although it make in some ways his life easier. But, you know, I look at my sister. She's the queen of conformity. Have you ever seen two sides of him being the true person that you grew up with, and how she performs with others? And you're just like, shit. It's so fake, it's ridiculous. It's like everyone's performing for each other. How much of this is Elisa performing for Laura? Or Carol, excuse me, not Laura. God, my memory sucks. So, how much of it is that? I mean, there's so many questions. You can't just dismiss it, but you also can't just blindly believe anything that you're reading. And then there's what you experience. The book I need to get back to writing. I had a writer's block and spent the past 2 weeks reading other people's books, struggling with that. And I will get back to writing. I think once I finish up with the Eighth Tower from John A. Keel, I'll probably get back to writing. But these are things I know prompted to read, and I haven't read any of these books before or heard much about them. Literally, I'm being prompted to do this, and it's helping me to really question my own experiences when it comes to Sasquatch, whether encounters or sightings, the UFOs that I've seen. Unidentified flying objects. How much, I mean, could it be some of it has to do with the government? Sure. I would give them too much credit. I think there's something deeper going on. I think the people in these government agencies are getting manipulated as well. I think that's the reason why the course that they've been taking, because they really don't have the answers. There's nothing to prove to me that they have the answers. They might have, and there's so much going on here. The occult, which then you start studying occult, and then you look at these Abrahamic religions, and what's the difference outside of, labelings? Monotheism, we all believe in one God, and we believe in religion. And then you look at cults, and then you look what the cults do, and you compare it to what's going on and say Judeo-Christianity, and my God, they're not that much different from each other. Now what do? And only about 2 of you might ever hear this, but it's probably the 2 that are meant to hear this. And the rest of you just move on with life, right? Rightfully so. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to encourage my son to join the Air Force. I hope, I wish I would have done that instead of going on a Mormon mission as a young man. I mean, in some respects, the Mormon mission was an amazing experience because I got to interact with people that I never would have had a chance to interact with, right? This is true. And then, I don't know, I mean, why can't we have, anthropological groups like that, scientific groups? Why can't we have armies of people, young men and women, going to different cultures and interacting with other cultures and getting to understand who they are, where they come from? Why does it always have to be attached with some mission? And notice, everyone keeps bringing up that they are something, these aliens or these beings, these entities, this force, keeps telling people they have a special mission. And it's always some end of the world scenario. And it's been going on for thousands of years. By the way, the world's still existing, and the special missions, nobody quite figures out and ever quite accomplishes. And now it's easy just to dismiss everyone else and say it's all psychosomatic and they're just delusional, but there's more going on, because the way this place is set up and designed, it's designed for us to fail, not to thrive. So my hat's off to anybody who actually does thrive, because you really are bucking the system. Now back to this whole thing about having these dreams about having sex and then blame it, about having sex with animals and then blame it on the aliens. Well, and then saying it's demons and all that. I mean, here's the thing, our sex drive is, and for anybody, I'm 55 years old, so I can speak from personal experience, and I know from many others, half a century, and I think you gotta have that perfectly mastered, and something's not going to show up, some hot chick's not going to show up, and you're not going to screw up, or whatever. Is delusional. The sex drive is powerful, and most of us keep it in check most of the time. I mean, there's times in our lives when it's impossible, and you're just like, and then afterwards, because of conditioning and everything, you're made to feel loathsome and like the worst human being there ever was. And I'm just thinking to myself, after all this time, what kind of being, if there's such a thing as a God, or an entity, or these entities that tell us, do design us this way, and then tell us it's our fault for being designed this way? The messages are so mixed, so convoluted, and such a mess. And yet, I think it's an extremely important topic that needs to be addressed more honestly and more not just so how do I say this? Why does it have to be solely, in order for people to even start accepting it, there has to be a whole bunch of Latin phrases and terminology and scientific verbiage for us not to have this, just have the conversation. And why do we have to, when someone like me talks this way, why do people roll their eyes? And, I mean, why are people afraid to talk this way? Listen, I know I have never had an original thought in my head, right? That tells me something quite clearly. I ain't alone in what I'm thinking and what I'm seeing. But apparently we are so conditioned, so indoctrinated, we can't talk this way for fear of what other people think of us. But once you realize that your reputation is out of your hands anyways, you might as well just fucking forget about it and just be who you are. And if people don't like it, then it's whose fault, whose problem really is it? It's the other person's fault, right? It's for those who had judged you for saying the truth. You know, if they don't like it the way you say it or how you speak it, then you do it. Then the person who's judging, you speak more honestly about stuff. You take the darts. You fall in your spear so that people will, or your sword, I should say, and so that you can open up the path for more honest dialogue about things. It has to be done. And always in the back of your mind, check yourself. Do you really know what you're saying is the truth? Because if you don't really know what you're saying is the truth, then you should at least put a caveat with it, or a disclaimer saying, you know, this is my best of my understanding of this point, subject to change. And by the way, that's very much how science operates. But we can't do that, can we? We're indoctrinated and trained that we have to give the right answers. Only to find out later that those right answers aren't the right answers. We were told they were the right answers. Anyways, back to this whole thing. I don't know why I got on that tangent. I think it's because, maybe because I'm struggling with the reading. I need to get new glasses. I'm going to have to, Monday, call the eye doctor and see if I can get different glasses. I just, maybe I need big giant bottle, big frickin' bug-eye glasses or something. I just having a hard time reading this stuff. My eyes are jumping all over the place. That's where the big problem is happening here. So I'm having of course, there are times when I can't say the word because I can't get my mouth to move, but my eyes are jumping all over the place. I'm putting in words that aren't there, and I've struggled this part of my whole life. This I can't blame the dyslexia on the multiple sclerosis, but I've had that problem my whole life. And I see my son struggling with it, and that's the reason why he doesn't want to read, because it's not any fun. So as for people, a person like myself, reading it literally is an exercise. It's a challenge. It's not because I'm not any more intelligent than the guy next to me, or because of my IQ. It's just because I have dyslexia. It's a struggle. It's awful. It's absolutely awful. It makes one wonder if there's a better way of writing a. I wonder what would be if things would be different if, say, instead of writing left to right or right to left, how about from top to bottom? How about if instead of paragraphs there were in sentences? If it would be easier, probably wouldn't. It would still get convoluted, wouldn't it? Or maybe words. I have no idea. I just have to fight through it for now. So Lisa woke up in her bed and saw a nebulous form moving quickly across the room and disappear. Startled and frightened, it took her a long time to fall back to sleep, and in the morning she felt nauseous. Imagine how much of that did I miss the whole thing? Maybe I did. After a similar dream in which Lisa was placed with several animals in sexual situations. I believe that she probably had that dream. I wouldn't be surprised if they did help create that dream. Encourage it. Now people say that's demonic or evil and all that. Yeah, maybe. Or maybe the whole damn fucking show is. Do you ever think of that? That maybe everything around us is something evil. And is been lying to us our whole lives. I think that's evil. And such things made it hard for her to dismiss all the dream memories as mere figments. Yet they were such scant evidence as to give any certainty of the event's reality. Whether they were real or dreams, there is the question of motivation. I believe sometimes I'm made to dream odd things, Lisa said, to see my reaction to them, and a poignant journal entry reveals how confusing this activity can be, how vulnerable it leaves the abductee. Dreamed Neil and I made love. She note, I hope it was him. Second controversial area reported by Lisa involves, as with the case of Pat in the previous chapter, the viewing of new bodies. She told me that her memory of seeing a new body occurred sometime in late 1992, although she was keeping a journal by that time, which recorded UFO sightings, conscious events, and dreams, both alien instigated and the normal, and self-generated variety. She confused for some reason to include this event in the record. Lisa recalled lying on a table aboard a craft with her new body beside her. I got out of my old body, she said, and stood next to it. I was looking it over. I even looked at my teeth. The body was perfect, but it had my long hair that I used to have. Somebody said they could make people believe that was me, she continued, even though it was perfect with long hair. I want so badly to get in it, but I did not. I didn't remember who the beings were in the room with me, just being overwhelming seeing the body. I don't remember how I got back into my old body. Late in 1993, Lisa had experienced another dream event about these situations. The dream of showing my new body to some friends, her journal records, and reading to them from a special book about humankind. I was reading with some clear instrument like a triangle. Don't remember what I was reading. This scenario of reading a book during the encounter, by the way, is a little known detail reported in a number of separate cases. Similar dreams are well, probably the things, because we're reading books, right? So it's imprinted, it's embedded into our subconscious, right? Similar dreams recurred in which she found herself displaying the new body. In one briefly recalled episode, she was showing it to her doctor, and in a much more involved dream, Lisa felt as if she had actually died in order to get into the new body, which she then showed. I'm thinking of reincarnation all of a sudden, which she then showed to her husband and some other people. There were other details of this dream that suggest it may, at the very least, have been a screen memory of an actual event. She insisted on keeping her son with her, for example, explaining to her husband that the son is one of us, like me. Lisa had been told in a past encounter that the aliens were interested only in her and her son, not the entire family. The encounter in the whole body was followed by a more familiar situation. In the exam room, a doctor or nurse were giving me an examination, she recalled, and telling me I had hepatitis, but they were giving me some sort of vaginal exam. I told them to leave me alone, that they weren't my doctors, but I don't remember more. In addition to the sexual encounters and the alleged cloning capabilities of the aliens, a third controversial topic avoided by many researchers focuses on the military involvement with aliens and abductees. For Lisa, as is so often the case with abductees, the first memory of a possible encounter with the military surfaced in a dream. I was being interrogated by the military, she said, pushed and made to lie crouched on the ground. In the back were some trucks, and besides them were guys in black uniforms standing watching me. The man asking questions were in regular military clothes, and they held me down with the butts of their guns. And they told me to give them the knowledge. And they said, at any cost. I told them I didn't know what they were talking about, and they just repeated themselves. Since that dream in August 1993, however, Lisa has had other memories of this particular event come to surface. The most detailed recollection came as part of a situation which closely fits the definition of the VRS dream discussed earlier. On the night of December 19th in 1993, Lisa had several dreams of a very ordinary sort, but in the midst of these regular dreams, she suddenly found herself in a situation, an environment that had quite a different feel to it. All of a sudden, I'm surrounded by military men, some in black clothes and some in green, she noted. I was being made to walk hurriedly on the grounds of some installation. I don't know how I got there or left. The soldiers were rude to me. I told them to stop pushing on me. Then we went into an office in some type that seemed plainly decorated. It looked like white walls and no pictures, and the desk and the chair were plain, and a man was sitting behind the desk, and he was a little heavy and looked slightly balding, but his hair was short. He had on green clothes and no medals or name, as I could tell. He started asking me questions about what I felt on the aliens. It seemed like he was wondering about how to get the public prepared. I told him that a lot of the public was already aware, and some would never accept it. I asked him how he could expect that, since we don't all agree on other things. We talked, I believed, a little about religion and politics, of course. I believe there were other people in the room. There always is religion and politics involved in this. And this sounds so much like a big part of it is side effects of indoctrination. I probably wasn't allowed to look. Then I think they brought me something to drink. I don't remember more. I just know this man looked bewildered and concerned. I believe the alien issue has gotten out of control, in his opinion. I expressed to him that I was tired of the game playing. For Lisa, then, the abduction phenomenon's parameters include witnessed UFO sightings, conscious perceptions of light, probes and aliens in the house, and conscious telepathic communications, bizarre external physical reactions from intimate objects in her environment, conscious perception of missing time episodes, unexplained physical marks on her body, and a number of virtual reality dream scenarios involving both human and alien beings. In a nutshell, this is an accurate general definition of the phenomena as reported by numerous abductees. But as the 8 representatives' accounts here demonstrate, the details of that scenario are highly bizarre, which is interesting. 8 representatives. The 8. And then next will be the 8th tower. The 8th tower. Makes me wonder if she's influenced by Mr. John Keel. Neither one of these people are with us anymore, by the way. They moved on to the other side. Allegedly. But as the 8 representatives' accounts here demonstrate, the details of that scenario are highly bizarre, variable to an absurd degree from case to case, invariably intrusive, sometimes physically painful, spiritually ambiguous, ingeniously deceptive, and at every level deeply disturbing. 3 experiences Lisa has recently reported will make this point very clear. The first, which she recalled in a dream state, began inside an unknown facility. I was on the table, Lisa said, and it looked like I was being pushed down a hall with bright lights. They, her attendants, were quickly strapping my feet down with straps that looked like Velcro. I don't know what these beings that abducted me looked like. Then something was inserted into my left ear, I think. I told them they were killing or hurting my brain. Then I blanked out. In the next remembered scene, something very different was going on, this time involving other humans. I believe the FBI came to arrest me, Lisa said, and they called me by my maiden name. One man was really mean to me. Lisa remembered nothing more, but she wondered the next morning if the soreness in her left ear and her throat had anything to do with the memory of the ear probe. And the second experience, which she recorded as a dream, also involved some physical procedure aboard a craft, but it began on a rather exalted level. I dreamed I was given a heavenly audience, Lisa reported. I believed it meant that they, aliens, invited me to speak with them, but I don't remember about what. A physical exam followed. I saw myself on a table in a spaceship and alien beings standing at the end of my feet, telling me or each other that I was an excellent breeder, she recalled. A reptile-looking creature was getting on top of me, I guess to rape me. After this, she remembered nothing more. The final experience had a much more conscious element to it than the dreams, and in spite of its more fantastic nature, Lisa had gone to bed early on this night and woke at 1:10 a.m., preparing to fall asleep again. But still awake, she began to feel a growing sense of some pressure, which became very intense. I looked up at the ceiling over me, Lisa said, and saw images that looked like vultures or the phoenix bird. There seemed to be two of them trying to chase each other off. Their eyes glowed green, I believe, and there appeared a spirit form. It seemed to have white hair and a beard, of course. I started yelling frantically, oh God, oh Heavenly Father, over and over, and trying to get myself free from the force. I felt the eyes roll back in my head. Then I felt a great pulling, and I'm not sure if I was in spirit form or body, but very quickly I was in the clouds of the sky, looking down and saw the lights of the town and vapors of the clouds. The spirit took me to a wall or some sort of tunnel. And I was going to be taken in. I don't remember more of what I saw. The next thing I knew, I was back in bed and looking at the same birds disappearing. I came out of an odd state I was in and went to the kitchen. I was trembling so bad. The clock was 3:40. God help me, Lisa concluded. Whatever I was seeing, the vulture or the phoenix, after all, are very different creatures who embody quite different concepts. A time loss of 2.5 hours occurred that night, and so did a serious injury to Lisa's back. A great pulling that took her upwards jerked her with such force that the next day she could hardly walk. The pain continued getting worse, and when she consulted a doctor, she was told that the spinal damage could prove permanent. And this one instance, at least, the event was more than virtual reality. So the next reading will be chapter, so I guess it's subject 5 now, Aneta. Pretty wild read. Pretty damn wild.
You're going to try, go all the way. Otherwise, don't even start. If you're going to try, go all the way. This could mean losing girlfriends, wives, relatives, jobs, and maybe your mind.
skin.